Welcome to the Notary Ninja Show with your host, author, entrepreneur, and master ninja Mark Sias. We discuss side hustles, business opportunities, scams, leveling up, and much, much more. Ideas so sharp, they'll cut the competition in half. You can reach Mark at legaldocprepnotary.com.
Record. We're rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Notary Ninja Show. We have a very special episode. We have a special guest on, Damian Andrews. He is Australian Special Forces is his background. He is an author and an entrepreneur and a philanthropist of all things, which is really exciting. His motto is sliding elephants through eyes of needles. In other words, making things that seem like very daunting challenges simplified. I like that. If you know me, I'm quoting people like Bruce Lee all the time, who says, "In simplicity is genius," which is true. We can take things that seem very challenging and break them down. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Damian, welcome to the Notary Ninja Show.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me, and especially across, all the way across the world, to be able to talk to you.
We're upside down right now. That's just so wild to me. So Damian's from down under, and if you couldn't pick up on the accent, which we love that over here. So
yeah, g'day to all the viewers.
So before we get into all that, let me ask: you got kangaroos going around out there?
Oh, yeah, well, I'm quite fortunate where I'm sitting. I'm down on what we call the peninsula. Australia is very creative with its names. We have a road that goes along the coast, which is called the Coast Road. But here on the peninsula, I'm 10 minutes from the beach. I have a reserve at the back of my yard, and I'm currently sitting looking at it at some trees. And I actually have kookaburras and magpies and other birds come to my back door, and I hand feed them. So it's a pretty tranquil place.
That's pretty cool. That's a kookaburra. That's the one that laughs, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they laugh at me all the time, and I don't take it personally. I just say, "Hey, that's all right. All right. I fell over. I get it."
I know here in Florida, people get this conception that their misconception. It's kind of true, actually, but that there's alligators coming out of the woodwork. It's kind of true, but it's not as dangerous, I think, as people would think.
We like to play it up here. We have what's called the drop bats. You got to be careful when you're walking through the trees. They'll drop out and suck blood out of your throat. But don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Touche. So Damian, tell us a little bit about your background. It sounds like a very interesting, very colorful person. I mean, you've had a pretty adventurous life up to this point.
Yeah, my life at the beginning was probably more about avoidance than anything else. When I was in school, I didn't want to be in school. My dad said I wasn't allowed to leave unless I had a job. 2 weeks later, the Army recruitment people came around and said, and I said, well, great, there's a way out of school here. It's a job. Not really thinking it through what that meant. So I joined the Army, and I've gone through basic training. And after I get through basic training, I'm thinking, this running around the bush, we only have one bush in Australia, just to mind you. We have the bush, not a forest. We have the bush. I was thinking, this is probably not what I really want to be doing. And you get the choice of there's a number of different jobs available that you can do. And I was mature enough to know that I wasn't get something like signals or other really good jobs. And if you didn't get one of those jobs, you went to infantry, which is, again, more running around the bush. Mm-hmm. And I thought, there was one job that no one was going for. So I thought, well, no one's going for that. The competition is really low. So tip in sales, go to places where the competition is low, because you're likely more chances of succeeding. I put the application in, and the role was actually for a chef's role within the Army. So I went there. I went to the school, and we learnt all this fancy culinary cooking. And while I was there, they asked one of the guys in my class, did he want to go to Perth? And he said, no, he just come from Perth. I don't want to go there. And so I was like, oh, I'll go to Perth. It's far away from home, whatever. And they go, okay, if you pass the psychological test, you can go. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. Not thinking about, again, what it is. So I've gone and done the test, passed it, drove over to Perth, and there I am at the SAS. So people say, "Oh, were you like Steven Seagal out of Under Siege?" The cook that was
That's
but
exactly what I was thinking while you're telling this story. That's exactly what I
yeah,
was like, the knife throwing them. That's exactly where I was going with this.
yeah. So my motivation when I was at the School of Cooks was also to, I was thinking about it, going, well, I'm 18. If I let, my first thought was, girls like guys that can cook, and that was my motivation. So it was kind of, done a lot of things because of, I think if you're into astrology, I'm not that big into it, but I do, I've read it and understand it. I'm a Leo. Which makes me a cat. So like, oh, shiny thing. And I jump over there. And sometimes it's like, oh, that's fire. Maybe don't go, maybe come back. It's kind of been my life a little bit. Yeah. But then I went after the army. I worked in the mine sites. I came back, decided that my dad was probably right in this, education was a good thing. I went and studied commerce, accounting and a bit of law. I went to work in corporate recovery after that. So that was breaking up companies and selling them off, or trying to sell them as a whole. Then I went
Kind
out
of
by
like Richard
myself
Gere and Pretty Woman.
yeah, thank you for that.
Exactly.
And I don't have the hair for it, but I put that down to too many U-turns under the sheets, if you can say that on your show. But it was I and then I worked in corporate recovery for a bit and played around with a few different things. When I was actually in the army, I had a fair bit of time off because we worked a long day, so we had a lot of time off. I worked. I thought, oh, I want to do something, to help, business wise, and so I actually applied for, and well, I didn't apply. I created positions. So I wrote to a number of marketing companies and said, can you take me on and teach me marketing? And one firm took me on. And so on my spare time in the army, I learned marketing. And then so I came back and studied commerce, and just got out there and just kept myself busy doing different things. While I was in the army, on my spare time, I went away and studied, instead of going on holidays to the beach, because our base was on the beach, so I probably didn't need to go.
It wasn't needed.
I went and studied neurolinguistics, neurolinguistic programming. So I did, on my leave, I went and did a 2-week course on neurolinguistics and continued that study as well. And so I always did that. And then part of it too, I think from a young age, we'd always been giving back as well. My dad would always help out with the footy club, and we'd be counting the cash from the thing. So maybe that helped with learning accounting as well. But also too, Christmas time was great because we had the Christmas party, and we'd get the big boxes of lollies, and we'd have to pack the lollies. And if there wasn't enough lollies to pack the bags, we got the extras. So I was always waiting to get the extras. But this giving and helping other people, volunteering your time, I did that. I remember when I was in Perth, between the army and going to the mines, I wasn't employed. And I didn't have any money in my bank account, and I was walking through the mall in Perth, and an Aboriginal man came and asked me for some change. And honestly, I didn't have any change in my pocket. I had a $20 note. That was it. That was my cash. I had nothing else, nothing in the bank account. And I went, and I thought about it, and I put my hand in my pocket, pulled out the note and gave it to him. First, he didn't believe me, I think, because he turned it over. He was looking at it, turning it over. And then he just lit up and he started dancing. He was dancing in front of me. Then he actually jumped on top of a big, where the public garbage bins. He jumped on top of that. He was dancing. He ran around. I think it was his wife or partner sitting on a seat, and he's dancing in front of her. And I just sat there watching him, feeling amazing at what he was doing, not thinking about my own position that, I didn't have a job and didn't have any more money. And I was just enjoying that moment. And then the next day, I got a phone call about a position that was available. I went and did the interview because I needed someone straight away, and I got the job. And I wonder about that. Did I get that job because my mood was good, because I'd given back, because I felt good about helping someone? My mood about it, I wasn't focused on my position of, I didn't have a job and my life sucks. It was like I felt good because I'd helped someone. And I think from my perspective, that's one of my key takeaways that I had in my life was, when you give back, you actually feel really good, and so much more comes back. And I've found that in my life. I've got so many people helping me. I'm helping a lot of people, but so many people will go out of their way to help me when I ask them. Partly, I believe, because I've actually gone a long way to help people. Yeah, so
That's that's a pretty that's a pretty profound concept. One of the things I try to speak to our audience is about this idea of over delivering to people, giving, basically giving more than they expect, because that is that's how you can grow your brand, your name, your business. People talk, and when we, this legal document preparation that we do, I remember, initially starting out, we took on a pro bono, and it was a project,
Yeah.
and but that same thing, because we sowed that, we've reaped so much just in referrals alone, from that. So you really have no idea how far the influence can spread when you do these things. And like you said, the their win becomes your win. You connect with them on that level.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, what we're slowly getting to, and certainly what I'm promoting, because with, as you're aware, with SHAIR.care, the charity that I have at the moment, or the foundation that I have now, is one of the slogans that we have is, it's in your own selfish best interest to help others. And where that comes from is, we've moved
Like
from
that.
we've moved from a zero-sum game in the world to a positive sum game. Well, before the Industrial Revolution, pretty much if you wanted to be better off, someone had to be had to be less better off.
You're a
That was
right?
why we had wars and things like that. So people would invade another country to take those resources. It was a zero-sum game. The resources were there. But from the Industrial Revolution, innovation has become the power. With innovation, we created a bigger pie. The problems that we have today, like cheap air travel, we didn't have 50 years ago, even 20 years, maybe 20 years ago. There was air travel, but say 50 years ago, cheap air travel wasn't an issue. But that was a problem that someone solved. And now that's enabled more people to travel and allowed more people to connect with each other. And when you think about it from that perspective, and this is where we say it's in your own selfish best interest to help others, you might help someone, for example, take cancer. And there's a lot of great medical institutes in the world trying to resolve cancer. But imagine what would happen if, just say, you helped people get educated. So 20 years ago, we helped a number of other countries become more developed. So we've educated and they've become more developed. And then they've also got top-notch medical facilities. How much closer would we be to solving cancer? So you might help someone get educated to become a doctor. They solve cancer, and then they help your child overcome cancer. So you never know where it's all going to come back. And that's why with innovation, it's created a positive sum world where if you help someone be better off, that's going to help the pie be bigger, so that you're actually going to be better off as well.
Yeah, that's great. It's the complete opposite of that kind of scarcity mindset, or that if I'm getting richer, you must be getting poorer. That's not true at all.
Correct.
You can collaborate. There are true win-win situations in the world, especially in this day and age. So talk a little bit about your charity. This is really interesting. I mean, like I said, you have a phenomenal background. You seem like a very intelligent individual, and obviously a very caring individual. So I want to hear a little bit more about the philanthropy.
Yeah, well, that started. There's a famous business person here in Australia called Frank Walker, and he has a tile business. Him and his wife have been running that for a while, and sorry, I just was checking because your face is frozen, so I'm not sure if you're still there. So I'm going to keep talking.
I can still hear you, so keep going.
Fantastic. I like this, and I like these little things in there, because people forget. I think in today's world, especially with social media, everyone presents this image of perfection, and I like to in my stuff, I like to have little mistakes and stuff. Well, keep the mistakes in, because it just shows we're all human, and it's okay. But SHAIR.care come about. I was working. I knew Frank from my stepdaughter went to school with his daughter. One of his daughters. Him and his wife Rhonda have 7 children, 6 daughters and one son. And he was talking about the foundation that he was starting to help prevent family violence. And I said, yeah, that's something that I'd connect with a lot, and I'd love to help out. And said, if I can help out in any way, let me know. And he did contact me and said, yeah, it can help out. And so I did. I volunteered my time to just help him out trying to get this organization up and running, because he hadn't started it yet. They'd been planning it for a while. Him and his wife had been planning that. And so after doing this for a little while, they had a quite stout board. The chairman of the board was actually the former managing director and chairman of BP. So he's no slouch. And Greg turned to Frank and said one day, he said, look, if you really want to get this up and running, you need to appoint someone as CEO and get them running. So Frank approached me and said, look, would you like to be the CEO, and I'll pay you to do that? And and I was paid quite a substantial amount to do that. And my role was to get this up and running. And so I did that, and I did it the board was expecting it to be 18 months, and I did it in 6 or 8, I think it was 8. So I just smashed it out of the park and got this running. But what happened through that process is, in doing some research, I realized in the space of getting help, if you've got a relationship problem, there wasn't a lot out there to get help with, certainly in Australia, and certainly wasn't organized. But when you compared it to whatever else is out there, for example, if you've got an alcohol problem, where do you go? You go to the AA website. Most people have heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. And generally, for most people, where you live, believe it or not, if you go to the AA website, within 7 kilometers or 3.5 miles in your language, you've got to translate, there's an AA meeting happening that night. Mm-hmm. And not only that, the way the structure of that organization is that it's not overly heavy as far as cost to set it up. People just run AA meetings. They've got a book that they follow, a set of instructions, and they follow it, and they do that. And another organization similar to that is Toastmasters. You want to learn to speak publicly. That Toastmasters, worldwide organization, again, simple structure that they have to follow. People can run that without any need to have big expenditure. So I was looking at that, going, okay, what in the family space? There's not much there. And as part of what we did for the Family Peace Foundation that I'd set up for Frank, was we wanted to show what strong families, how they deal with problems. To give an example, rather than say, oh, here's a problem. So we organized a dinner party. It was a lunch party. And we had a table setting that had 8 people on it. Plus we had 2 prominent psychologists here, Sabina Reed and Dr. Michael Carr-Gregg, they're quite famous and very renowned psychologists. And we had 14 participants. All of them, none of them were couples. So we only had, even though they were from a strong family, or what we understood to be a strong family, they weren't, we didn't have the couple, just one person. And we rotated people in. So we had equal men and women, and we rotated them in. And the psychologists asked some questions, and they answered those questions. But what I noticed after a little while, because I was directing it, was that men were starting to do a lot of the talking. And coming from a corporate background, I'm starting to get concerned, going, okay, men are dominating the conversation, because you get that in boardrooms where it's the men are dominating the conversation. So I said to the ladies off camera, I said, look, I'm getting a bit concerned. The men seem to be dominating the conversation, and I'm a bit worried about that. And all the ladies stood up and they said, no, we never hear men talking about this stuff. We're loving listening. And that was a light bulb moment. Give men a safe environment, they will open up, they will share, they will talk. So that was my first light bulb moment. And then after that, after this happened, after we finished it, about a month later, maybe it was 6 weeks later, I called everyone up to say, look, appreciate your time. Can you give us any feedback on what we did? And that was the purpose of the call. What I found from that call is everyone from that event went away, organized their own dinner party to have these conversations of how to deal with life, how to address relationships, so they went away and did that. So that was my light bulb moment as well, going, if you give people a structure to follow, they will actually create their own connection with people. They'll create, similar to like a Toastmasters, they'll get together and organize that. So I took and I went and looked at, okay, what are the principles that create a strong, healthy, and inspiring relationship, which is the acronym for SHAIR. And that was a marketing thing on my behalf, having studied marketing ages ago. It's like I looked it up in the dictionary. SHAIR's not a real word. I went, cool, like Uber, it's not a real word. I think great marketing. tool because I can own that. And when I looked at the website, it's actually SHAIR.com was taken. So I was a little bit peeved about that. And then I saw SHAIR.care and I just went, that's so much better. So I took that. And as it turns out, doing more research later, it's SHAIR, SHAIR, is a word. It's an Islamic word that means fountain of wisdom, ironically. So that was kind of fortuitous. But we looked at what are the principles that create a strong, healthy, and inspiring relationship. Personal responsibility was one. Having strong finances was one. Having a plan was another. So we created the 10 principles, and they're on the website, the SHAIR.care website that is there. So if you go to SHAIR.care and you'll see that there is the 10 principles and the background behind them. And then on top of that, was looking further and going, there's a lot of instructions about what not to do in life. It's telling you, you can't do this, can't do that. So we're looking at that going, well, really, where is the guidance on what you can do? And I looked throughout history and even went back in medieval times, you had the Knights Code. This is how knights had a higher set of principles that they held them to. I do a lot of contract work now, and just because the contract says you can doesn't mean you should. Right. If you've got a higher set of principles. And that was what I looked at. And we went, okay, so we actually rewrote the Knights Code as a guiding set of principles to people. And one of them was, to actually like yourself and not take offense at the opinion of others. Because oftentimes someone will say something, we get offended and we create this spiral of aggression. Whereas a lot of times if someone says something, it's like, so what? And I get that from my mum. My mum always taught me, it doesn't matter what people say, don't care about it. Doesn't. And as a kid, I hated it. But as an adult, there's something to that. There's so many times where, because one of the things I do teach in my corporate work that I do is dispute avoidance rather than dispute resolution. Because with I can see the young guy. Hey, g'day. For those who are just listening, there's a young boy in the background window.
We got photobombed.
Exactly. But it was coming back to that higher. When we look at dispute resolution, it's usually after you've got a dispute. Whereas dispute avoidance is a lot of times, someone might say something, so what? Big deal. Or you go, instead of getting offended, what makes you say that? What and if you actually turn to listening as opposed to getting offended, you can get a conversation and get an understanding. And there's so many relationships that I've created. I remember in a corporate environment where I was doing some claims on a construction site. The superintendent was an older gentleman. He's a grumpy old gentleman. And I used to, I would always wear a suit, and I used to wear braces, 80s style back then. Now I wear a vest, but back then I had braces, so I was very much, 80s, so Gordon Gekko look. And was standing there one day, and he actually grabbed my braces and flicked them. And he goes, anyway, and then and I didn't respond. I go, well, don't touch me. But I didn't respond. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then he turned to me like almost, it was a few seconds after that, and he goes, they look really cool. I wish I had the guts to wear braces like you do. And our relationship changed because of that. Whereas if I had got offended and got upset and jumped down his throat, that wouldn't have helped. I'm not saying someone pushing and shoving you is something you just should go, yeah, that's okay. But this was it was an old gentleman. He just flicked my braces. Big deal. Right. And it created a different
pause
dynamic.
A second, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. So, and that's when you're talking about where did SHAIR come from. I know that's a long story, but because there's a lot packed into it. And that is really some of the core things that are behind that. It's one, let's create environments where people can feel safe to open up. And it can be, your squash club or your footy club or, wherever it is, where you just have a higher set of principles that you talk about and go, well, okay, we've got, 10 principles that we admire to. How are you going on your financial plan, and have those discussions. And also to having the code as in this higher accountability that we have for ourselves, that we look after people, that we care for people, that we care for ourselves. Those kind of things. And the code is on the SHAIR.care website as well.
Gotcha. So your book, Be the Black Hole. Let's talk about that. The book came about because for me,
I really believe life is easy, and I know we've got the exercise mentality that says you got to push really hard and things like that. And certainly, if you want to be, you want to be the best in the world at something. You take, like if you're in basketball, having this discussion with someone a couple of days ago. You've got Michael Jordan, you had Kobe Bryant, who tragically passed away, but these people were exceptional at what they did. And best in the world. When you look at all the people in the world that play basketball, these people were at the top. And why were they at the top? Because they put in so much effort. But they also put in the right effort as well. I remember, and this was one of the stories that was put up, was that there was a story of Kobe Bryant when he was playing, and as he was throwing the ball, someone hit his arm, and as a result, he missed that shot. Apparently that night afterwards, he went back and got someone to hit his arm, and he just kept throwing it to work out how to make that shot. And he just kept doing it over and over again. So he was doing the right thing. He was practicing the right thing to overcome that issue. And because they say practice makes perfect, but practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Whatever you're doing, it will make it permanent. If you're doing the wrong action, it's just going to make it, you're going to be better at doing the wrong action.
Right.
Yeah, because how much have you heard the statement, don't work harder, work smarter? And how many of us actually work smarter if we're going to be honest with ourselves? And so that's part of, what the focus is about, finding those areas where we can really excel and work smarter and do things in a more efficient way, and being focused on where you're going. A lot of people, I find in working with them, when you ask them what do they want, they generally don't know. And so I changed the question. I said, well, what do you choose? Because it surprised me that a lot of people, and I didn't as well when I was younger, that people actually don't realize they have a choice. They're not stuck doing whatever they were told to do by their parents. They're not stuck doing whatever supposedly society says of them. People say, there's so much pressure with how to look that's been placed on you by society. And it's, well, I don't have my alerts on my phone on, so I don't get dings from social media telling me what to do. I generally don't watch the news. The internet has been great and this is where we live in this wonderful world where we can pick the information we want to see, not what we're told to see. Back when I grew up, in Australia, we had TV, and we had, I think, 4 channels. And so that's all you had. And you had to watch what was on at that time if you wanted that entertainment. And you had to, you didn't have to watch the ads, but the ads were on, and generally you watched them because you didn't want to get up and miss the next part of the show. But today we have the choice. And that's why I say, what do you choose? Because when you think about it, what do you choose? If you're binge watching Netflix, and I do that too, it's like, but I'm looking at going, that's what I'm choosing in that moment. I'm not procrastinating. There is no procrastination. And that's where the book comes to. It's going, when you set things up the right way, your goals just come to you, because the part of your brain called your reticular activating system, which is governed by your beliefs, and beliefs are just a thought you've repeated over and over again. People think beliefs are real, but they're not. It's just something you've repeated, and you can change them very quickly if you want to. But the main point is your reticular activating system that filters what you see. How many of us have had that experience where we've been looking for something, we're looking in ridiculous places like the freezer, and it's never going to be in the freezer, but we look there anyway, and then we find it sitting on the bench. It was always right in front of us, but our reticular activating system blocked us because we weren't filtering it. We weren't actually looking for it. We were thinking of everything else. I do that. I love Lego, and I play with Lego, and I did that as a training exercise. Whenever I was looking for a piece, and I'd get it really clear in my mind, and almost my mind would go straight to where that piece was. My eyes would go straight to where it was. I'd look at and I did it as a training exercise. So for anyone that thinks Lego is childish, not. It's a training exercise for adults to be focused. That's my excuse. And so that's
very insightful.
So that once you set yourself up that way, all of a sudden you see these things that were always in front of you. And that's where and then it actually goes a step further. This is ridiculous. My friends hate me for this, but I made a goal. I said, okay, wherever I go, I'm more than likely going to get a park right out front. And I set that as a goal. And it's surprising. I'll be going out with my friends and we're driving along and we're in a busy car park. And then right out the front of where I'm driving past, where I need to get out, someone's lights will come on, the reverse lights will come on, and they're about to reverse out. And they just go, how do you do that? And it's like, I set the goal. I just set the goal. But I don't know how it works. And I don't want to, I mean, there's the law of attraction. We've all heard of the law of attraction. I think your unconscious mind, and we forget that we are driven by our unconscious mind, and that's part of what the book is about as well, is how often have you had the experience where you thought you understood something, you knew it, and then when you went and did it, you messed it up completely, and you didn't do it as well as you thought you understood it. And same token too, how often have you had your experience where you thought you didn't understand it, and then you've surprised yourself? And that's the difference we make. We forget that understanding is a conscious function. Action is an unconscious function. If you were to pick up a cup off your desk, you couldn't consciously think of all the steps you've got to go through, all the muscles you've got to move. You can't consciously do that. Whereas we operate from our unconscious mind, our actions come from our unconscious mind. And there's so many things that we may not be aware of consciously, but we get that feeling. You've ever had that gut feeling this is the right thing to do? That's your unconscious mind picking up on things that actually you need to know about. You can't explain it because consciously you can't see all that information. You couldn't process all that information, just like you can't process all the information, all the muscles you need to move to pick up a cup. But your unconscious mind knows what's going on and is directing you as to what to do. And that's the fundamental point of what Be the Black Hole is, become a force so powerful that your goals come to you, is tapping into your unconscious mind, letting it serve you. Often that happens to me. One of the things that I do is I run a private equity fund. And many times I'll have to choose between two stocks, both equally as good as the other. And it's really a gut feel that goes, okay, which one I'll choose. And more often not that I'm right, that one performs better, but I'm trusting in the unconscious, my conscious mind that's aware of all the things, because I've trained myself to do that over time. But once you train your unconscious mind to be the guider of you, as far as action goes, goals become really easy and it actually feels like they're coming to you.
So how would we put this? Let's say somebody is looking at you and they're looking at me and they're like, yeah, that's easy for you guys to say, probably they have some circumstance or limiting beliefs, or some circumstantial evidence preventing them from taking this leap of faith. How would somebody empower themselves with these ideas?
And that's the tricky part with that, because it's one of those things where you're exactly right. They'll look at you and go, "That's easy for you to say," and that is the answer to that question. It's easy for us because we believe it's easy for us. And there's so many people out there that are doing it just purely because they believe it's easy for them. And I take that, a step further. We talk about happiness and how to find happiness. And I was looking at a lot of quotes, looking at the Dalai Lama and a number of quotes, from famous people in that space as to, the secret to happiness. And one of my favorite authors and someone that I've studied a lot, what my favorite book is How to Be a No Limit Person by Wayne Dyer. And in that book, he concludes right at the end and says, there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. And I've distilled that into my own version, is the secret of happiness is to be happy. And you go, well, how is that possible? That's not right. The thing is, it is right. Chemically, we know what makes us happy is dopamine. And serotonin is a connection of that. So when you're doing something that makes you happy, you get a dopamine rush. But we go, well, when you're doing something that makes you happy, what makes you happy? Well, you're thinking it's happy. So and they do this with video games a lot. They'll design video games that give you little rewards as you're going. So you get a little, you're laughing, yeah, you get it. You give you a little reward. You feel this little sense of accomplishment. So you feel happy. Then you go to the next one and you get little Mario goes along, he hits a coin and the coin goes up. You go, that, to get a little sound that makes you feel good. But you can create that. So, and the thing is, they've proven this in studies as well, is that if you actually think happy, your body will start to produce dopamine. So as soon as you go, as soon as you try this, grab a pen. For everyone listening, grab a pen, put it between your teeth, and now try not to smile. Try not to smile. But how are you feeling right now?
I feel great.
Yeah. So, and it's as simple as that. Because you did that, and because you created this action that made you smile, your body started producing dopamine.
Reacted.
And that's why I say the secret to happiness is to be happy. As soon as you start thinking happy thoughts, your body chemically will produce. It cannot not do it. It must do that. So, and that's how to do that. And that simple exercise there for someone that's doubting it, put the pen between your mouth. Don't allow your lips to touch the pen, and try not to smile.
You touched on something there a little bit that I want to comment on is you said just taking that initial effort. And I think a lot of times, and you kind of segue to that too, where oftentimes we'll do something that we might not think we're good at, and we find out we are good at, or vice versa. We may find something that we just think that we've got it figured out, and it ends up being a catastrophe. I think it's important for people, no matter what your goal is, across the board, is to just start with something really, really that easy win, that video game concept, that get that easy win, whatever it is. And that can create a chain reaction, definitely in your mind. But then that can play out in real time.
Well, and that's the thing too, and this is where I'm going to draw from. You guys in America created some really good stuff. There was a movie that came out in 1937. It was the first feature-length animated movie called Snow White. And what did Snow White sing in that movie? Whistle while you work. If you create, it's not really hard. If you're doing something, and I've done this where from that same perspective, I've done some pretty repetitive. There's one job when I was fluffing around in between things when I was younger, and I had to sort through these spreadsheets, and it was massive amount of spreadsheets, lots of data. I had to sort them because when they dumped it out, it wasn't organized in the right columns. And so, and I created that as a game. It sucked. It was a horrible job if I wanted to make it horrible. And it would have been, but I approached it from that perspective of going, okay, how can I make this fun? And I made it a game in how I was sorting it through. So I actually enjoyed it, and people going, why are you having fun? And it's like, well, because I'm making it a game. I'm making it fun. It's my choice. It can suck, but I've got to do it anyway. Otherwise, I'm not going to get paid, and I need the money. This was when I was younger, and I needed the money, and it was like, so I might as well make it fun. And it was the same, take the movie Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. She sings that song in every task that must be done. There is an element of fun, is what she quotes. Find the fun, and there's the game. And that comes back to the reason it's a game is you're producing dopamine. All of a sudden, you just cannot not be happy.
These are great suggestions, and these quotes from movies are great because they seem so, I think as people, they just seem so dismissive that it really can't be that simple. But I think the reality is that it can be, and oftentimes it is. If you can make things fun, if you can just change your perspective, how you're choosing to see something, it can have an impact. It can have an exponential impact.
100%, and it is habit too, because a lot of times, the reason people don't see it is, we believe what we believe because we were taught that way, or we taught ourselves that way, one of the two. And beliefs are just a thought that you've repeated over and over again, and we think our beliefs are true. We think that's real, but it's not. It's just a thought that you've had. And if the thought is not, so it depends on what you want. If you want to be a miserable, person going around, well, that's fine. It might serve you to be miserable. A lot of people get a lot of satisfaction out of complaining because someone go, oh, woe is you, and they get a bit of attention, and maybe that's what they need. Or I can tell you, getting attention for doing things that help people is certainly much better. Because I've done the woe is me too. There was a time when I was younger, when I was single and trying to work out why I couldn't get a girlfriend. And I was in my car listening to the song that was saying, why won't everybody love me? Listening to that same song over and over again. Any wonder I felt depressed. It was like, I created that. I wanted to do that. But when you do have that step, and that's part of, I think, what you're doing, and certainly what I'm doing, is the more people we can talk to and share that about. Some people, and I work with a lot of groups where people are in that situation where they're not having that experience, or they haven't had those beliefs. And just a little bit, going, oh, try this, and the pen exercise, little things like that. All of a sudden, they start to go, oh, maybe there is an alternative here. Maybe there is a different way of approaching it. But and the reality is, and that's why SHAIR's first principle is responsibility. When you recognize you are responsible for your own actions, for your own thoughts, that turns your life around.
Absolutely. There's plenty of study, like locus of control, like a direct correlation between someone's sense of control and how far they can go.
Yeah, well, and it's also important to be aware of that too. There's lots of studies that show that a person that actually believes is fatalistic, they believe that they don't have any control, is actually more likely to engage in activities that are more on the criminal side and be dishonest, those kind of things, because they feel that they don't have to. So, and this is a tip for working with people: when you're talking with people and you get that sense that that they don't have control. Certainly, if you're entering into a business relation, one of the quotes that, and certainly something I learned too late in life, is no amount of skill fixes a poor partner choice. Whether it's personal, business, whatever, you need to be careful about the relationships you get yourselves involved in, because once you're in there, it's not going to get better generally. And usually if it well, we all know how the legal system works. I mean, you work in the legal environment. There's a lot of disputes out there. The easiest way to avoid a dispute is not be in that place in the first situation. And paying attention to what people are doing and what they're like, and certainly that fatalistic attitude has a predisposition to actually doing things that aren't probably above board.
This is also true. I was actually just talking with a business coach the other day, Joe Rocky, and he was saying, as part of like that focusing, what do you want? What are you choosing to do, in your words? And one of the things that he had brought up was, well, what don't you want? Who don't you want to work with? The same thing. Let's avoid let's get clear on what could be a catastrophe. And so when that comes up, you've got the red flags that go, wait a minute, we're not going down this road.
Now, great example, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner. He talks about that, from that perspective. That was one of his key rules, was going, what don't I want? What's likely to cause me the most issues? And then don't do that. It's like the person that goes into the doctor and says, doctor, I'm getting this sharp pain in my fingers every now and then. And the doctor says, okay, what's causing, what's happening when you get that sharp finger and sharp pain in your fingers? And we go, well, what I'm doing is at that time, my finger's in the door jamb and I shut the door. And the doctor says, well, just don't do that. I know it's an extreme example, but it's one of those things. How many times do we know that we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing? We do it anyway, and then we complain about the result. Yeah, and that's the thing. Your business partner, the business person you're talking to, is right. If you look at what you don't want, stay away from it. It's not a hard rule.
Well, Damian, so we're going to wrap this up. So what would you want my audience to know? What parting message would you want to send out there?
I think just take the time. Take some time. Don't be so rushed to react. Don't be so rushed to push forward with things. I know from my experiences many times where, certainly in some relationships that I've been in, where someone, would send me a message and I'd get upset and text something back or call back or say something back immediately. And that would just escalate it. Now, in most situations, and I remember reading about it was Abraham Lincoln during the war there, where apparently if my history is correct, and I'm not, I'm not from that area, but I've read the story, and apparently, there was a point where they could have pushed forward and taken and ended the war a lot quicker than they did, and the general didn't. And Lincoln wrote this very upset and abusive. Well, abuse is maybe not the right, but we're going, what the hell? Why didn't you do this? And he never sent it. They found it in his desk after he died. And it was one of those things is standing out as to sometimes, maybe write it out, maybe do that, but then sleep on it. Take that time to think about it before we're doing it again, and think about what you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to escalate the situation, or are you trying to de-escalate it and create a resolve the situation? Because a lot of times if we just take that time, breathe, sleep on it, deal with it the next day, you'll find that you'll have a different approach that will be more productive. So that would be my takeaway.
Awesome. Yeah, I think Zig Ziglar used to do this comparison between responding and reacting, and response is a good thing and reacting is a bad thing. I think that's kind of in that same context. Thanks for that. So tell the audience how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, the easiest way, I'm on LinkedIn. The easiest way to find me, Damian Andrews, just Google me. I'm every link on the front page. I haven't looked to the second page, but I'm certainly every link on the front page. But at my website, damianandrews.com, DAMIAN Andrews.com. On LinkedIn, you can also reach me through SHAIR.care. As they're probably the key ways to do that, and there's links there. I've got internet. I've got a US number on my website where you can actually call me as a local call. Well, I think it's a New York number. It's in the New York area. But if that's not local to you, I apologize. But it's a US number anyway. It's not international. And yeah, so they're probably the easiest ways to find me. Google me, damianandrews.com, which has the phone numbers on there, and an email to contact me that way, or through the SHAIR.care website as well.
And then the book is Be the Black Coal. Let me make sure I got it. I want to get this. Become a force so powerful your goals come to you.
Yeah.
Like
so that's the book. It's not quite finished yet, but the aim is so there is pre-orders that you can put in there for that, and we'll give you a special signed edition. We're making a collector's version of that. Not sure if it's going to be worth a lot of money, but maybe someday if I do something really fabulous, or float through the air or something spectacular, it might be worth a lot of money. But if that's an incentive for you, but if not, just send us your details, and I'll put you on the wait list and let you know as soon as it's published.
All righty. Awesome. Damian, thank you for being a guest on the Notary Ninja Show.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having us on there. And I love ninjas. They're so quiet and stealthful. So yeah, it's been great.
Touche. All right.